bitches, please. Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40. Can't wait. Let's go.
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show here on Sports Empire Network. Thank you so much for making us part of your morning routine. I am Chris, and of course, that over there is Mo. Mo, how are you this morning, sir?
I'm doing great. Appreciate everybody up in the chat and everybody that's checking us out live, no matter what platform you're on. Appreciate you guys. Ready to go.
Mo, some pretty exciting news if you follow us on the TikTok. Tomorrow we will be going live on TikTok during the morning show.
Wow.
Just another way that you can watch us and hang out with us. So make sure you check that out tomorrow morning right here on the morning show. But Mo, let's start here. We often look at the NFL and sometimes we say to ourselves that the owners of the NFL are a little out of touch with what is happening with their team. A lot of times when we have this conversation, we take a look at Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. And Mo, I think a lot of that is rightfully spoken. But there are other owners in this league who make comments, who give sound bites. And even though they own the team, you sit back and you say to yourself, you don't really know what's up, do you? That is not the case, Mo, in Pittsburgh, because the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers has come out this week, and he has said the biggest and most important thing for this team moving forward is quality play at the quarterback position. He also went on to say that not just quality play, Mo, but consistent quality play. Which
I like that.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist, Mo, to figure out that he doesn't feel they currently have that. If you're saying the biggest thing that this team needs moving forward, or the biggest factor in this team's success moving forward is quality play or consistent play at the quarterback position, clearly Patrick Mahomes isn't your quarterback.
Right.
So with that in mind, Mo, we take a look at the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh, and I think it's fair to say it's a little uneasy. You got Kenny Pickett there, who many would say regressed a little bit this past season. He's definitely had some peaks and valleys. And then you look at the Mitchell Trubisky situation. He may not even be on that team next year. He was the backup, and he got outplayed in the backup role. And then you look at their third-string quarterback, and you're like, he's been there for a while. If they wanted him to be the starting quarterback, you would have thought he already would have gotten that opportunity. Mo, is the future quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm not just talking next season, because I don't know if they're going to be able to make any big moves. I don't know if they're going to move off of Pickett. We know that Mike Tomlin likes Pickett. We know that Mike Tomlin defends Pickett to the ends of the earth. But then you also look at this past season, even Pickett had some rough kind of behind-the-scenes stuff, because he had allegedly said that he isn't going to back up the third-string quarterback, and that if he is healthy, he should be the one starting. And I defended him when he said that, but it doesn't mean it's going to make the team want you there, right? Like, sure. I can say I have no issue with you saying that just as easily as the team can say, well, we think this is an issue that you said that, and now we're going to do something about it. What is the future of the quarterback position in Pittsburgh, Mo? And do you see Pickett being a long-term solution?
I think the plan right now is for Pickett to be their starting quarterback. I haven't seen anything, and I think you would agree with me, from him that shows that he could be the future of the franchise. The only thing we can say about Kenny Pickett for sure is he's young.
He's
young. He's young, and you can say he is still developing, and maybe he hasn't met the right offensive coordinator, the right system for his skill set. But I look at Pittsburgh, and I feel like they could be a team with the right quarterback that's built to win now. And if that's the case, I have to think that the owner is thinking about right now. Because if you're not thinking about right now, aren't we going to basically be what we were last season? And if you're a middle of the road team and you finish 9-8, aren't we going to go, well, I don't know, we're probably not going to extend Mike Tomlin. He gave us 9-8. So if you're going to give Mike Tomlin every opportunity, and this goes out to any head coach for that matter, you have to be honest about what you have at the quarterback position. This is a quarterback-driven league. I don't think Pittsburgh has their starting quarterback on their roster right now. I just don't believe that. If they go forward with what they have, I think you're going to get what you got last year. And maybe you don't win that last game and you break that hold on Mike Tomlin not having a losing season. And he actually has a losing season. I think that settling for just being good enough, to me, isn't good enough, right? You'd like to see them go, I don't know, 12-5 or being 111-6, but be relevant and actually be a contender. Nobody thought, even though they made the playoffs, and I actually thought they overachieved to some degree with those quarterbacks, but nobody thought once Pittsburgh gets in the playoffs, look out. Nobody felt that way, not even Steeler fans, if they're being honest. So because they didn't feel comfortable, they didn't feel optimistic about who was behind center. And I think going forward, if you tell me as a season ticket holder, we're bringing back Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph and the crew, look out, world, I'm not going to be that excited because that doesn't make me think we're about to put Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes on notice in Pittsburgh. I don't think no one thinks that way. So I don't know if you feel that way, but I think they have to go out and be aggressive and get a quarterback that can impact the entire offense.
I will say this. I do think the offensive coordinator is important. I think there are plenty of quarterbacks in the league where you can connect their success to who is working with them, who is calling their plays, who is designing the offense around them. That being said, Mo, Kenny Pickett, on the other hand, over here, he has been the model of consistency his first 2 years in the league. He has started 12 games in 2022 and 2023. Those 2 seasons combined, 13 touchdowns, 13 interceptions.
Consistent.
So in 24 career starts, he has 14 wins and 10 losses, and he has 13 touchdowns and 13 picks in those 24 games. Now, I look at that, Mo, and I'm saying, I don't know how many franchise quarterbacks out there are only going to have 13 touchdown passes in 24 games started. Not to mention the fact it's not great if your touchdown to interception ratio is 1-1, which is where Pickett currently stands. That being said, 3 years is usually what I know. I know that people in the NFL now do not want to go 3, but I think 3 years is fair. If they have shown you any glimpse and you can put some stability around them, give them into year 3 before you start making decisions. Now, that doesn't mean that after year 2, you don't start putting the backup plan together. That doesn't mean that if you have an opportunity to draft a guy, you don't go draft a guy. Nothing wrong with that. You can draft someone as an insurance policy and tell Pickett, start of the season belongs to you, and we'll go from there. And if you're getting, if you're 6 games in next season and he's 4 touchdowns and 4 picks through 6 games, which would be on pace with what he's done the first 2 seasons, that would be very on brand for him, Mo, then maybe you make a move. I never thought Pickett was the right pick for Pittsburgh. Never saw it as a fit. I think they took him because of where he played his college football.
Agreed.
I think they took him because it was a story. I think they took him because it made a lot of people feel good about the pick. I don't think they took him because they thought that he was going to be a franchise quarterback. I think they hoped. I think they crossed their fingers that he would be above average and that the consistency of that Pittsburgh Steelers defense, the consistency, even though there hadn't been, but the perceived consistency of that Pittsburgh Steelers running attack, and then the consistency of head coach Mike Tomlin, always having a winning record, always sniffing the playoffs. I think they thought that would be enough to get by. And Mo, if there's one thing that we have learned in the NFL, you don't get by at the quarterback position. You need a little more than that, don't you?
No question. And I think that everything you said is on brand. They've drafted him for the story. the hometown and I get it. Had that worked out, that would have been amazing. But it hasn't worked out. But you make a fair point. This will be year 3. Who's to say that he won't make that leap, provided that the running game is consistent, the offensive line is stronger, the offensive coordinator plays to his strengths and his skill sets. I can't argue that. So what I will say is, do I believe Kenny Pickett will be the starting quarterback for the Steelers? I do. Would I, if I were the GM, would I move on from him? I would. But that's me, and that's why the GM makes the big bucks, because he gets to do it in real life and in real time. But we'll see going forward. But I just know that when you look at the AFC and those monster quarterbacks that they have in the AFC that you have to go through, I don't think you can get by with a guy who's not even what I would call a great game manager. He's just a guy. And if you've got just a guy, that means that your guy that's just a guy, he's no better than the version of Deshaun Watson that we see, which isn't a great version of Deshaun Watson, but he's not better than him. He's not better than Flacco getting off his couch. He's not better than him. He's definitely not better than Lamar or Burrow or Mahomes or Herbert. I could keep going, or Tua. Knowing that going into the season, I would think you would be aggressive at trying to pursue, or even drafting or pursuing some kind of free agent or trade option, because there are some veteran quarterbacks out there that would be clear upgrades from what you have right now in your quarterback room. That's all I'm saying.
Joe Flacco is a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett's.
Yes.
Sorry, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Today, right now, Joe Flacco is a better quarterback than Kenny Pickett is. Now, I'm not saying you're going to get much further with Joe Flacco, because he is a flawed quarterback for sure.
He will turn the ball over.
You put Joe Flacco on the Pittsburgh Steelers team, and it will look like they have wide receivers again. It will look like George Pickens and Deontay Johnson exist if Joe Flacco is the quarterback on that team. You put Joe Flacco on that team, and Pat Freiermuth will exist once again. And the running backs will be catching balls out of the back. I'm just saying. Now, they're going to lose because Joe's going to turn it over 2 or 3 times a game in some games. But, they're going to score points. That's all I'm saying there, Mo. Before we got Will coming on the show today, but before we get to Will, Mo, I wanted to jump to this, and this fired me up. And I don't know if you're going to feel like a tenth of the fire that I have for this situation, but there has been, in the last 48 hours or so, there has been a ton of Greg Olsen slander. And I am not here for it, Mo.
Wait a minute. Are we talking about Greg Olsen, the tight end?
Yes. Greg Olsen, the tight end, famous with the Carolina Panthers.
Correct.
He was on this past season. He was on the number 1 team when it came to the Fox broadcasting NFL coverage groups. Now, next season, he'll be moved to the number 2 team because Tom Brady is coming in with his massive Fox deal. And obviously, if you pay Brady that much money, Brady is going to be on the number 1 coverage team, which means someone has to be bumped to the number 2 team, and so on and so forth down the ladder. Now, I'm not saying that when you invest that much money in Tom Brady, he shouldn't be in the number 1 team. Clearly, you did that for a reason, and you need to get the return on your investment. No issue with that. Mo, my issue is the narrative that has popped up the last 48 hours that Tom Brady is just going to be head and shoulders better than Greg Olsen. I would argue that Greg Olsen was fantastic in the booth. Greg Olsen won an Emmy Award for his work in the NFL broadcast booth since he received that position. Greg Olsen, I think, is better than any color commentator over on CBS, and that includes their darling, Tony Romo, who I think should not have a job because he is god-awful at what he does, which is a whole nother story, Mo, because I was a huge Tony Romo fan for about 1.5 years or 2 years when he was predicting plays before they happened. And he was breaking down offenses and telling us why they ran this and why they didn't run that. And somehow Tony Romo has turned into this Josh Allen loving, insert his favorite quarterback here. I don't know what has happened
He
to
does
Tony
love him.
Romo in the broadcast booth, but he is so far from what he was his first couple of years in the booth. But you look at a guy like Greg Olsen, and I've listened to 3 or 4 of his games this past season. He doesn't favor one side or the other. He's just as analytical as any of his other contemporaries are as far as predicting plays, breaking down what plays happened. Obviously, he has a niche. He was a tight end. So when you're coming to offensive protections and tight end routes and that kind of stuff, he can break that down a lot better than, say, the defensive side of the football. But it's not like he's inept on doing that. Mo, it bothers me to a certain extent when just because someone else is coming in, just because someone else has a bigger name recognition, you just automatically assume they're going to be better. Tom could be great. I have nothing against Tom Brady. I'm not a Tom Brady hater. I'm not going to say he got too much money for this. Tom could be wonderful. But you know what, Mo? They also thought that Montana was going to be wonderful in the booth.
Joe was not.
How did that go?
Joe was not.
There are so many great NFL players that they thought were going to be great in the booth, and they didn't last the season, or they only lasted one season, and they had to get him out of there because it just wasn't it. I'm not saying that's going to be Brady, but just because Brady is coming in, and by the way, this isn't just as simple as Olsen is getting moved to the number 2 team. Olsen is also taking a 70% pay cut to be moved to the number 2 team. He made $10 million this past season on the number 1 team. He is going to make $3 million next season on the number 2 team. And again, I get it. Yes, sir.
Quick question. If he takes that kind of a pay cut to go to the number 2 team, what happens to the guy that was on the number 2 team to get bumped to the number 3 team?
Exactly. And so on and so forth.
Right.
Until you get to the part where it's, oh, you were on the last team and now you're not on.
Right. Now you have no job.
Because that's what happens. Because
Right.
That's how the trickle-down effect works.
Right.
We're only talking about Brady and Olsen, but if Fox has, 8 coverage teams for the NFL, well, whoever is currently on the 8th team most likely won't be on a coverage team next season because you got to make room for everyone else. So that's another unfortunate side of it. But Mo, I don't like the idea that just because Brady is coming in and he has had an illustrious NFL career and he is probably one of the greatest NFL players of all time,
no doubt,
that because of that, Greg Olsen is garbage as a result. And I just don't think that's the case. And I think his Emmy would show that's not the case, Mo.
No, I've enjoyed Greg Olsen. The thing about Greg Olsen is he's a natural. If you've listened to any games that they've called, he's a natural. Like, it's funny because I don't mind Troy Aikman up in the booth. He's been solid for years, but I would say that Greg Olsen is a more natural than Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman he's worked his way into being solid, but Greg Olsen, when he stepped in, you would have thought he'd been doing it for years. He was that fluid in his calls and the knowledge and way he broke things down. I will say this about Tom Brady, though, and it might be what hurt Joe or what Joe didn't do. Brady seems to me to have that tenacity that I guarantee you that he had a studio built in his home. I guarantee you he's had other maybe they're unemployed or whatever, but he's hired broadcasters to come to his home and they've gone back and forth and they've simulated. And I know people are like, you don't know. I do know. That's how his mind. That's how
100%.
That's how his mind works. He's that meticulous and he's that maniacal. He's of the mindset. There's no way I'm going to go on the air and I'm going to look unprepared or I don't know what I'm talking about. And so he will be as more prepared than any guy ever. The only question with Brady is, will he come across as his authentic self? which makes Greg Olsen great, which makes Romo what he is. Even if you don't like Romo anymore, I think why fans like him still is because they believe he really is being who he is, right? Never mind the fact that he's slathering over Josh Allen 90% of the time. I think most fans think he's being his genuine self. Brady's going to come in there and he's going to be more than ready. The question is, will he be a natural or will he still be stiff? You can practice all you want, and then a real game comes on, and there's those things that you can't foresee happening. Will he be able to flow naturally? I will say this. I don't know the answer to that, but I think that Tom Brady, being how he is, he's going to be ready. He's going to be more than ready. Like I said, he's got a studio. He's been calling games already, Chris. He's going to be more than ready. I just think that it's a shame that someone of Greg Olsen's talent, like you said, already an Emmy winner, gets bumped. That not just gets bumped down, but he takes this major pay cut, and then, like you said, it's the last man on the totem pole. He knocks somebody down to 3 goes to 4, and eventually, if you're in that number 8 spot, you're like, so we got to get our resumes ready because we're done, right?
Right.
We're finished. Thanks, Tom. Like, that's what you think.
My other issue with Tony Romo, and I don't think he's been doing this his entire career in the booth, but God damn, Mo, this man is a bet hedger. He will make a statement out of one side of his mouth, and then he will come right out the other side and hedge his bet before anything happens. Just pick a side, Tony. It's okay if you're wrong in the booth and they don't do what you said, but stop trying to cover all your bait. I cannot do it. He just bothers me. And then it's like a competition. Like, who do I dislike more, him or Chris Collinsworth? Because
Collinsworth's been around forever.
The Collinsworth love for Patrick Mahomes rivals the Tony Romo love. Like, I don't know if this has ever happened, but I need the Chiefs to play the Bills, and I need Romo and Collinsworth on the commentary, and I need them just to go back and forth with their Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen love, because
a fight might break out.
I don't know. Like, it would just be entertaining to me. Because, and then the other thing, I don't mean to go into this rant, but the other thing that Collinsworth does, because you get Romo, take out the Allen and the Mahomes love. Collinsworth will do this thing where he's always comparing the other quarterback to either who is injured or who was there previously or to Patrick Mahomes. So you get games with Collinsworth where Mahomes isn't even playing. And the quarterback makes a play. He's like, oh, he's got a little Patrick. Why are we talking about Mahomes? He's not even playing. And you work him into the conversation, Chris.
I wonder if that's in his contract.
I think it is. I think he needs to work Patrick into the conversation. Dear God. Let's get Will on here.
It drives you crazy, partner. Hang in there.
Let's get Will on here. I can't. I literally can't. Will, welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning, Will.
I apologize, Will. I can't with Tony Romo. I can't with Chris Collinsworth. I just can't. I don't know.
Morning, Will.
How you guys doing? Good morning. How's everyone today?
Doing well.
Hey, we're doing well. We're happy to have you here, Will. Let's talk a little NBA, shall we? I want to open with this. What Damian Lillard? I don't know. I literally read this story like 3 times this morning because I don't know. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know why we're saying things. You were the face of the Portland Trailblazers forever. Yes. You were the guy that was never going to leave Portland. If you were going to win a championship, it was going to happen in Portland. And then you kind of realized they're never going to get me anybody that's going to help me win a title here. If I want one, I'm probably going to have to go. And it was weird when you left, and it was messy when you left. And we didn't even know if they were going to let you leave because they really didn't have to. And then not only do they let you leave, they put you with one of the best players in the NBA today in Giannis. And they put you on a team that is in contention for a title. And, okay, things are looking great. You know, then you come out to a nice start, 30-13. Your head coach gets fired. That's a little weird. You're bringing Doc Rivers because apparently he's going to take you to the promised land. That's a little weird. Okay. And then you come out of nowhere with I can see myself playing in Portland again.
You know what that is, right? You know what your mama taught you. You know what that is.
How does he see himself playing in Portland again?
You know what that is, though. You know, when someone sticks a microphone in your face, and you remember what your parents always told you, particularly your mom or your grandmother, if you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all.
True.
Well, I'm thinking
True.
he was just being nice, because if he really felt that way, he would have never left or lobbied to leave. So he
Correct.
was just being nice. That's all it was. That was
Don't forget, Will, that was his brand for over a decade.
Yep.
I will never leave to go hook up with another star. I'm not about that. I'm not like those other guys. I'm different. If I don't win a title in Portland, then I'm not going to win a title. That's my mission. That was his brand. That was his brand for over 10 years. And ultimately, he showed you his true colors and said, yeah, I really need to get out of here.
Lies and deceit. Lies and deceit. I love him as a player, but lies and deceit. Because look at where you are now.
Now, Will, clearly, Scary Terry does not pull from this playbook. I don't know if his mom didn't tell him about saying nice things. I don't know if his grandma didn't explain to him that you shouldn't throw shade on people. But he was asked, or I don't know if he was asked, or if he just put it out there for consumption. But he was comparing what it's like to lose in Charlotte to what it's like to lose in Miami. And he basically said that, losing is built into the DNA of Charlotte. So no, it's not the same when you lose in Miami, when you lose in Charlotte. And he basically called Charlotte a bunch of losers. Now, Will, I'm not thinking he's saying anything that, other people aren't saying. But for me, I'm going to ask you this. Is there really a need for that? Once you're out of the franchise, is there really a need to go and kind of kick a franchise that everyone knows sucks, that everyone knows has mishandled things, that everyone knows that you weren't happy there? What are we doing?
There's no need to say that, but that doesn't mean it's not an unspoken, or should have been an unspoken truth. That team is so poorly managed. I don't understand how anyone could stand to play there. That team is just so poorly managed. I don't get it. I don't get it. Part of it is 90% of it team mismanagement, injury history with certain stars. And I don't see it getting better for them anytime soon.
Let me ask you this, though, Will. It's funny that Rozier would say that about Charlotte, because since he's been a member of the Miami Heat, they're in a 7-game losing streak. So did he bring some of that losing with him? Because they haven't done – he was supposed to be an upgrade. He was supposed to form with Jimmy Butler and Bam, and they were going to have like a mini big three, and it didn't working out so well.
No,
it's not looking good. Like, and you know how Pat Riley is. Like we were talking about John Lynch. Pat Riley's going to give this a little bit more time. Somebody's going to go, and it won't be Eric Spoelstra, but somebody's going to go. The Heat are 7-game losing streak. They're not looking good. I think it's time, and you have to consider this, right? Your best player is Jimmy Butler, but he is 33, 34 years old. You could argue his body is a few more years older than that. At what point do you have to make that tough call and move on? Maybe you send Jimmy to another contender, although that's not really in the Pat Riley DNA. He doesn't work like that. He'll send you to Siberia before he sends you to a contender.
Old school. He's old school. So he's gonna send you somewhere to where, at very least, he might send you to a contender, but it's going to be in the Western Conference. He's
maybe
old school, so
maybe that as far away as possible. Look, all I'm saying is you look at Miami since the arrival of Rozier, and they weren't playing great before, but they've managed to get worse. So I think going forward, knowing how Pat Riley's minds think, look, and Pat Riley's a lot like John Lynch in the sense that he'll say, I got that one wrong. I thought this guy was going to inject energy, and he was going to make our offense more diverse, and something's missing. And everybody's – and look, you come there, and I know you know this, Will, that Miami's very unique in that every week they weigh you. Like they're that stringent on their players. They have a weight. You have to be a certain weight and hold that bar, and your endurance and all that's got to be at a certain number. Maybe Scary Terry's just not cut out for Heat culture.
He might not be. He never had to face this anywhere else he's been. So he might not be cut out to play in that Miami Heat locker room. We'll see. But I did want to touch on something that you said, and I've been thinking about this too. I believe it's time to move Jimmy Butler. I really believe it is.
Well, what would that look like, Will? What would moving Jimmy look like?
Man.
At this point in his career? Because remember, and I don't want to discredit Jimmy Butler, but you have to look at him honestly through his time with Miami. He's a good player, but he is also a player that gets on these heaters come playoff time, and there is no rhyme or reason for it. It tends to happen. But when you're moving him to a new team might be like, I get it. I get what he has done in the playoffs, but that isn't a guarantee. It's not a guarantee. Like, just because he comes to our team, if our team gets into the playoffs, there's no guarantee we get that production. But if you look at his average production of the last 3 regular seasons, that's really what you're selling to me. You're selling me that production with the hope that this playoff Jimmy thing continues to kind of present itself going forward. It's a unique sell, Will, because it's not nothing, but at the same time, it can't be everything.
Right. It definitely have to be something that makes sense, not only for your team chemistry, but definitely financially too. It's something that you'll have to look at as well if you move a player of his caliber. Places I love to see Butler go. Okay, I love to see him at OKC as a veteran presence for a young team. I love to see him go somewhere. And I know this ain't never gonna happen. It ain't never going, because I don't think the Warriors have the players to do it. But I'd love to see him on a Golden State Warriors team. I just don't think they can pull it off. He needs to go somewhere to where.
What would that locker room look like? Draymond and Jimmy Butler. Ooh.
I think you moved. I think you get at some point. You got to get rid of Draymond at some point. We saw the other day he had a hard foul. We saw that the other day. This man needs help. The time off that he's had hasn't helped him. He's still doing the same stuff.
He had a foul last night before the game even started.
Yeah, don't make no sense, man.
There was like half a second or like no time off the clock, and they're lining up, and he's already fouling people.
It makes no sense. At some point, you gotta move. You gotta move Dre. We gotta move him. I got into an argument with somebody. I got into an argument with a Golden State Warrior fan because I said, "Hey, Draymond's looking at the wrong end of being banned for the rest of the season. He's looking at the wrong end of it. No, he's not. He's Draymond Green. The Warriors need him. They would never do that to him. Yes, they would. But I'd love to see him in Golden State. I'd love to see that, but in order for that to happen, I think you would have to move Draymond.
Gentlemen, I applaud everyone who was involved in this. I'm very happy that it's going to happen. We are going to see Steph and Sabrina in a 3-point contest during All-Star Weekend. It came together. The rules are exactly how they should be. Steph is going to shoot from the NBA 3-point line with an NBA ball. Sabrina is going to shoot from the WNBA 3-point line with a WNBA ball. They're both getting charities involved. There's a lot of moving parts to this. It's going to bring a lot of eyes to this particular event. It's going to bring a lot of eyes onto Sabrina and the WNBA because of this particular event. There was some concern as to whether or not they would let it happen, even though both were very open to it. And I think the key here is that Steph was open to it, right? Like if she was really open to it and Steph was a little hesitant, it wouldn't happen.
It wouldn't happen.
But they were both super open to it. And I'm glad that the powers to be allowed it to happen and are letting it happen. And I think this is going to be one of the biggest highlights of this basketball season.
And it also gets a lot of eyes on the WNBA too. And they really need it. They really, really need it. So I'm glad this is going down.
Shout out to Steph Curry, because a lot of stars would have. I want to word this right. They would have avoided that. Because they would have thought of a downside. And I think that Steph, being how he is, he doesn't see a downside. He doesn't see it being bad if he loses to Sabrina. He may or he may not, but he's not the kind of guy that if I lose to her, people are going to see me in a different light. I think he knows better than that, and a lot of guys aren't that secure that they would see it that way. So shout out to Steph for seeing the bigger picture and having that much confidence and that much self wherewithal to go like, I'm still going to go down as the greatest shooter of all time if I take that L. He doesn't plan on taking an L, but he's like, if Sabrina beats me, guys are going to be like, we can leave Steph open now. He's not that good anymore. That's not going to happen.
It definitely shows you that Steph doesn't have an ego when it comes to stuff like this, and that's good to see.
Agreed.
Because a lot of dudes would have a massive ego. What if I lose? What does this do to my brand if I lose?
Right.
So
I actually think this whole thing builds up his brand even more. I
think so too. Good for Steph. Good stuff.
Yep.
Well, the Knicks have won 8 straight games. They have gone 14-2 in the month of January. Has January changed your perception of the New York Knicks at all?
No. Because we
That's
know
not what Knicks fans wanted to hear, Will.
No.
That was harsh, Will.
No, because we know what's going to happen come playoff time. It's going to be it looks good for the regular. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a Knicks hater per se. I think it's good for the NBA when the Knicks are playing well. I think it's great for the NBA when they're playing well. But we know what's going to happen playoff time. We already know. And shout out to Jalen Brunson. No hate on him.
I'm a big fan of Brunson.
Yeah, no hate on him. But I just think it's nice window dressing. They're teasing what they could be. But when it comes down to the playoffs, we all know what's going to happen. Second round exit.
Well, yeah. And a big reason for that is because they're, I guess, the guy that a lot of people perceive to be their best player. He does what he normally does in the playoffs. He didn't show up. He never shows up. Not built for the playoffs. He is definitely a product of the regular season. And look, I'll keep saying this, and I take heat from Knicks fans all the time, but I'm adamant about this. They are not going to be perceived as a legit title contender until they unload that anchor that is known as Julius Randle. Period.
I agree. You got Brunson, and that's a good start, but you gotta finish it. You gotta finish your roster by getting rid of Julius Randle, getting some talent in there that's going to perform playoff time.
Agreed. And gentlemen, as the Knicks have been surging, it's also fair to point out that the rest of the top of the Eastern Conference has more or less held serve. So the New York Knicks have won 9 out of 10. They go 14-2 in the month of January. The Cleveland Cavaliers have also won 9 out of 10. The Bucks have won 7 out of 10. The Celtics have won 8 out of 10. So the Knicks are up to third in the East, only a game and a half behind Milwaukee, but they're still sitting 6 behind Boston, and Philly and Cleveland are just 1 game behind them. So you look at the great run. January was a great run for the New York Knicks, but when you look at the standings, you're like, oh, they basically moved up a spot, and they're still in that clump with all those teams. There hasn't really been any separation. So it doesn't take anything away from their run, but it is kind of not demoralizing, but it's kind of like, we go on that great run. We go 14-2, and we're basically where we were before the great run. So if you're the Knicks, you need to kind of keep pushing forward because, like Will said, do what you got to do in the regular season. Just be a top 6 team, and then it matters come playoff time. Because the difference from 5th to 2nd doesn't matter if you're just going to go out in round 2 again. So figure it out in the regular season, get to the playoffs, see what happens. Will, before we get you out of here.
Real quick, go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
No, tee it up, Mo. Tee it up.
Real quick, Will, your thoughts on Doc Rivers becoming the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks?
That's where I was going.
Oh,
let's hear it.
That's why we're partners.
That's right.
Great, rah. Again, I'll say it again. And people say I'm a hater. I'm not a hater. I'm just looking at past performance. And when you look at past performance of Doc Rivers, great rah guy, great guy to get you hyped up, get you ready for the regular season going into the playoffs. Hell, he's gonna look good in the first round of the playoffs. But when you get to the second and you start getting leads, you start seeing things deteriorate. You start seeing things happen on his watch that wouldn't happen to ordinary coaches, that causes leads to be lost. 3-1 leads to be lost multiple times. So I just don't think he's a fit I don't think he's going to be a fit that they're looking for in Milwaukee. I've said it before. I'll say it again. They should have brought Budenholzer back. They should have on hands and knees with the biggest damn contract ever to bring that man back and coach his team, because I don't think Doc Rivers is the answer. I just don't think he's the answer.
If you ever get bored, go to YouTube and look at some of the Doc Rivers timeout conversations. It's all rah-rah. It's all he knows how to do. They have cuts on YouTube from the same game of his timeout conversations that aired on the gameplay compared to the other coaches' timeout conversations. And you would think that he's not even coaching in the NBA the way he's talking to them. It's that middle
Also,
school,
too,
we got it, we can do this.
Also, too, if you go back, that culture in Milwaukee is still jacked up. I mean, you're going back and you seeing players coming up with plays.
Yeah.
Players. Come on now. That's your coach's job. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. I don't think Doc is that guy.
Be careful in Milwaukee, Will, because Giannis is starting to walk a fine line. He is. He's starting to walk a fine line. That he's kind of going through coaches. I'm just saying, this isn't to say in any way that he's not a great player, but he used to be like Teflon, like he could do no wrong, just a good guy, was all about basketball.
Right.
And over the last 2 or 3 seasons, he's been kind of politicking. He's been, I need this coach, or I need a reason to stay. Well, the reason to stay was Damian Lillard. And then I need another coach. He handpicked Adrian Griffin. That didn't work out. He's the guy that if Giannis didn't sign off on it, Budenholzer would still be the coach. So Giannis was like, yeah, Budenholzer needs to go. And now they bring in Doc. If it doesn't work out with Doc, are you really going to go get another coach?
Are we saying that he's turning into the NBA version of a wide receiver prima donna? Kind of diva, kind of being a diva a little bit here. Are we? I
hope not, but I hope
it's not. I hope it's not, but it's looking like it is with him. Everything's good as long as it's going his way. But when you get to the least bit of adversity, oh yeah, we got to make some changes. We got to do this. We got to do that. Nah. And who did he learn all this from? Later on in his career, who did he learn all this from? I'm gonna say his name, and Freddie gonna be mad at me. LeBron James. That's all I got to say.
I would say this: the worst thing that Adrian Griffin did, he spoke the truth about Giannis's brother.
Yep.
And Mo, you give Giannis too much credit. It's not 2 or 3 seasons. They win a title. They exit the playoffs early. This has been a year. You get rid of a coach you never should have got rid of. You bring in a guy that Giannis has to approve of. During this entire time, Giannis is making those comments. Well, if they don't prove to me that they want to win,
right,
they got to prove it to me, and then they bring in the guy that he wants. And then apparently he's not getting along with the guy that he wanted. So that guy gets ousted. This is all basically a year. This is all happening. Now we see Doc Rivers in there. Who knows? Who knows how that ends? If it's a first-round exit from the playoffs again, well, how is Giannis going to be feeling at the end of the season? As he's got his third coach in, a calendar year, I have no idea. That's pretty wild to think about. But, Will, before we get you out of here, little MVP talk on a Wednesday morning. I want to hit you with the top 5 odds makers for the MVP according to Vegas. And it is in this order. It is right now Joker, SAG, Embiid, Luka, and Giannis. They are the top 5. There is a huge drop-off from Giannis to Tatum, who currently has the 6th best odds according to Vegas to win the MVP this season. If you were giving out the award today, Will, who do you give it to?
I love Joker. I do. I don't see how a man who can barely jump 2 feet averages as many rebounds as he does, but I got to give it to Embiid. A healthy Embiid, yeah, that's my MVP for everything he can do on the floor. My only gripe on Embiid, sometimes he can get in love with playing the perimeter a little bit too much. You 7 foot, get down that low block and play. Sometimes he can get just out there. Okay, I got a small amount, I can shoot. No, get down that block. Be what you are. You're a center. You're a big man. Play like it. But other than that, that's my only gripe on Joel. He will be my MVP if you give it out today.
He's having a great year.
He's having a great year.
And look, to your point, even though he can fall in love with the jumper at times, more than ever in his career, he's not settling. He's posting up more, and because he's posting up more, he leads the NBA in free throw attempts. I mean, he's remember, he's not just 7 foot. He goes about 285.
He's a big boy.
He's a big, powerful man. That to have that kind of skill and footwork for his size, it's amazing. The question with Embiid though is, it's kind of a Lamar Jackson thing, guys. If he wins the MVP again and they get knocked out in the second round again, like at what point do we go like, so Embiid is built for the regular season too, right? Does he get that label as well?
Right.
Well, is he getting the 65 games?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think he does. I don't think he does. Which would be a shame. But again, I still think if I had to give it up because of the way he's playing right now, I would give it to him. But because of his injury history, no, I don't think he makes 65.
All right. Well, always a pleasure having you here every Wednesday, sir.
Appreciate
Thank you so
Will.
much.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me on. You guys have a great day.
You as well. That's tough, Mo. That 65 games is tough because I get it, and we know why they're doing it. But if it's a legitimate injury situation,
right?
Let's say he hits 62, and in those 62, he was the best player in the NBA. That's tough. I get it when it's only 35, right? Like you're not going to give a guy who only played 35 games, even though he was dominant in all those 35 games, the MVP. It makes sense. But if he's close to 60, we'll see what the final number is.
You know what? You just blew my mind with that, partner, because what if he plays 62, 63 games and he's just by far the best player in basketball? Maybe Silver wants to put a clause in or something like if they play, maybe it's more than 60. Leave it at that. If you play more than 60, you're good.
Because then you know what the narrative is. The narrative is, oh, so-and-so was the MVP because they couldn't give it to Embiid because he only played 63 games.
That is exactly what's going to happen. Right.
And that's not the narrative you want if you're the NBA, the de facto MVP, because the real MVP couldn't actually win it. It'll be interesting.
So then Embiid, who is a social media darling, goes out and he gets his own MVP and he does I'm the people's champ, right? He's the people's MVP.
Well, I saw this debate spring up all over yesterday. I think it was on one of the Fox morning talk shows. So I wanted to bring it here to the morning show. And the debate is as follows. You have one game to win. All right. Doesn't matter what your defense looks like. Doesn't matter what your O-line looks like. Doesn't matter what your weapons look like. Let's just assume you're average to below average across the board. You got one game to win. Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady?
Wow. That's tough. Man, that's tough, man. Honestly.
And we're not talking about who's the greatest.
And we're not talking about
accomplishments or Super Bowl rings.
Right. This is just skill set versus skill set, right? Their ability versus ability.
One game.
When you put it in that light, it's just, let's say it's Tom Brady with no rings and Patrick Mahomes with no rings, and it's one game with all the money on the line with their skill sets. I would pick Patrick Mahomes. Call me, and I'm not. I know they're gonna say like, oh, so no. I'm not saying who's the greatest because that's a different conversation. But you're asking me right now today, with not Gronk, not Kelsey, but let's say tight end Joe Jackson, and the wide receivers are just regular guys, and you're saying one game for it all on the line with their God-given abilities and mindsets, I'm gonna go Patrick Mahomes.
Think about this. If you were to make a list, a bullet point list of everything that Tom Brady does great, all right? Just list off all the elite traits that Tom Brady has. And then underneath all those elite traits, I want you to list off all of the God-given physical ability that Tom Brady has, okay? He can hit this 40-yard route with a dart. He can throw a deep ball this far. If he gets pressured, he can do this. No matter what you list for Brady, Patrick Mahomes can do it as well. And in most cases, Mo, he can do it better. And that's where, if you are going to pick Tom Brady in this argument, it's because you're picking 7 Super Bowls, or it's because you are an anti-Kansas City Chief or Patrick Mahomes person,
And there's
or
no
it's
shortage of those.
because you are a Patriots fan. Because if
Sure.
you look at this realistically, okay, if the defense is good you're playing against and they're going to get to the quarterback, Tom can't run. Tom is not a mobile quarterback. I want a quarterback that can get out of there and make plays with his legs. If they have one good pass rush coming off the right side, well, I want a quarterback who can easily move the pocket. Patrick has that. Patrick throws a better deep ball than Tom Brady does. When things break down, Patrick Mahomes is more likely to make an off-script play than Tom Brady is. Now, you can sit here and say, well, Chris, Tom Brady has a better mind for the game. Sure, I'll give you that. Tom Brady maybe can dissect a defense and break it down faster than what Patrick can before he snaps the ball. But the counter argument to that is, once the ball is snapped, who is going to make more often the more dynamic play if things break down around them or if things don't go exactly as planned? It's going to be Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes doesn't need a great defense. He can win shootouts. He doesn't need great weapons. If you look at Tom Brady, and I know we don't want to get into what did they do with what they had. When Tom Brady had his greatest weapon of all time, they didn't win a Super Bowl. They didn't. Now, he put up Patrick Mahomes' numbers with Randy Moss, but they didn't get to the ultimate place when they had that weapon. So I struggle, and the only thing I think I can definitively give to Tom, if you're just going one-on-one, I think that analytically he is going to see things before the snap that Patrick isn't going to see.
He will, and he can manipulate coverages a lot of times with his eye. He's the best. I used to think Manning was the best because you could tell the work he put into it, but Brady was innately more instinctive about things than Manning was. He was less mechanical. Another thing that Brady does really well that people don't talk about is, and a lot of people who watch football will notice, is when pressure is coming around him and there's all duress and it's total chaos, he's the best at climbing the pocket and still not seeing the rush. He's aware of it, but his eyes are always downfield. Look, I don't know if Mahomes is as good as he is at that. He's obviously a better athlete, but I'm talking about just feeling the rush, not necessarily running, but just sliding to the left and then climbing the pocket. It is an elite trait that Tom Brady. That's just Tom Brady. He's not the only great quarterback that can do that, but I think he's the best I've ever seen.
Now, Mo, for me, this conversation changes drastically if you just say they both have a Pro Bowl offensive line. If they both have a Pro Bowl offensive line,
you're taking Brady.
I'm taking Brady.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to give Brady time to throw, and I don't have to worry about him running around or having to move the pocket or him throwing under duress, if you're going to tell me that both have a Pro Bowl line and both are going to have time to do what they got to do back there, now all that intangible stuff with Mahomes kind of goes away in my mind. And now I want the mind of Tom Brady because, like you just said, now he has time back there. And what is he doing with his time? He's moving people with his eyes. He's getting people to different spots. He's doing what Tom Brady is elite at. So for me, the conversation has so many layers. If you're just throwing these two quarterbacks into pure chaos and you're saying that literally you are the only good thing on your team and we need to go out there and find a way to win this game,
I know where you're going.
I think in chaos, I'm taking Mahomes.
Yeah.
If the offense isn't in chaos, I think I'm going to take Tom Brady. If the offense doesn't have playmakers and you're going to tell me my defense is terrible and my defense is going to give up at least 35,
Right.
I might take Mahomes because now I know I need to make plays. Now I know that I need to score a lot of points. And Brady had a couple of seasons like that, but he's not known for that, right? He's not known to be that stat guy, put up 40 points in a game. Brady is known to be I'm going to hang on to the ball. I'm going to dink and dunk you. Eventually, I'm going to lull you in and have a deep shot open, and I'm going to take it. But we're going to hold the ball a lot longer than you.
Right.
We're going to run you into the ground, and we're going to win, 28-10. And it's still going to be a blowout. It's still going to be a blowout, but we don't need to win, 45. We don't need to possess the ball that much to blow you out.
You just made a point, partner, that I think actually goes to Brady, because what Mahomes did just last week versus the Ravens, that's what Brady would have done against the Ravens.
Tom Brady-esque, yes, sir.
That he would have absolutely dominated the clock and ate up the clock on long drives to help his defense out and to put more pressure on the Ravens offense. That is what Brady did better than any quarterback that I've ever seen. That when the defense wasn't at his best, he said, okay, I got you guys. We'll go on an 11-play, 9-minute drive. We'll give you a break, and we will milk this out. And the Patriots were great because they would always get that score right before the half and get the second half kickoff and score again. And before you knew it, you were down almost 3 touchdowns.
And you haven't touched the ball in like 45 real minutes.
Right.
And like 22 game minutes, you haven't touched the ball.
Right.
Last time you had the ball, it was a tie game. Now 45 minutes later, you're down 14.
What you just proposed, though, it just opened up a conversation that we could talk about to the Super Bowl. Think about this, what you just said. If you took Joe Montana, Dan Marino, and they're just with some guys, nobody's an elite wide receiver, there's not a Pro Bowl offensive line, they're just some guys, who would you take for a game to win? And you could go down the line. You could throw Elway in there, and suddenly it's different, because with chaos, I would actually lean towards what Elway could do in chaos. But look at what Marino could do with his quick release. Like, even with a bad offensive line and you got a pass rush coming off the edge, he's already gotten rid of the ball. The ball's gone. The ball's out. So I think it makes for a great conversation with the other great quarterbacks.
Before we get out of here, Mo, 2 more things. One, The Athletic released a terrific article today about the New York Football Jets. It really dives into the disaster that was the Jets season. If you are a New York Jets fan, I do not think you should read the article. You are not going to feel good about your team moving forward after you read the article. It talks a lot about the turmoil that Aaron Rodgers being in the building caused. It talks a lot about the dissension amongst some of the players and the coaching staff. It talks a lot about the Aaron Rodgers friends and family plan that Mo and I have discussed here on the show. It does not give the Jet fan a lot of glimmer going into next season if all the pieces and all the players stay the same, but it's still an interesting read regardless. That's out today on The Athletic. And Mo, let's close with this. We got about 30 seconds here. Kadarius Toney, you're a moron. The Kansas City Chiefs gave you an out. Yeah, they said you were injured, and you weren't actually injured, because you know what? That does more for you than saying we're not going to play you because you can't catch a football.
Right.
So for you to come out on Instagram Live and be like, I'm not hurt. I'm not hurt. We know, Tony. We know you weren't hurt. We know why you're not playing. Just let them do you the favor, because you're not doing yourself any favors to find your next team.
Agreed. And being hurt, with you being in street clothes, is a better look than you being fully suited up and not playing.
100%. Mo, close us out, sir.
Thank you so much for everybody in the chat. Thank you for everybody who's watching Chris and I live. Check out all the great content that we have to offer to you on Sports Empire Network. Check out the Empire.
Make sure you're back here. Same time, same place tomorrow. It's Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show powered by Sports Empire Network, and we will see you in the morning.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face.
Oh, from Brooklyn.
Hey, you guys any